It's almost impossible for us to imagine what it might be like for kids not to have a childhood. But believe it or not, for most of human history, there was no such thing. Up until a few hundred years ago, being a kid tended to be brutal. Medicine was minimal, and public health was almost non-existent for most of Western history, which means lots of babies never made it out of infancy. And if they did, well, that's when things really started to get hard. You see, from the ancient world until around the 1600s, kids were basically considered to be small adults who needed to learn the ways of the world as fast as possible. In fact, you can see this in lots of medieval art, where kids tend to look like mini adults rather than children. It wasn't so much that medieval parents were extra mean, it's just that people at the time didn't really understand the concept of being a kid. For instance, most people in the Western world at the time believed that newborns were actually evil. Yikes! The idea was that a child was born sinful and could only be purified through teaching. That's a lot to put on a baby, if you ask me. But that's what most people believed at the time, and the way they raised their kids reflected that. Instead of spending time playing with friends and scraping their knees, kids tended to scrape up the rest of their body working hard to help provide for the family, either working in the field or helping with tasks around the house, or most often, both. Kids would start helping out the family around age 5 and would level up to more grown-up jobs as they were able. Most youngsters were also expected to go get jobs as soon as they could. A popular job for children as young as 4 in England was a chimney sweep. Since kids were so small, they had an easier time crawling into soot-filled chimneys and sweeping it clean. The fact that it's incredibly hard and unhealthy work never seemed to occur to anyone. But thankfully for us all, that all started to change in the 1600s. For the first time, influential thinkers started to talk about children as innocent, blank slates in need of protection from the brutality of the adult world. People expanded on those ideas and started to understand childhood as a separate stage of life. Children were finally being left to develop more naturally rather than being thrust into the adult world as early as possible. Now, just because people started to think about the concept of childhood definitely doesn't mean things changed overnight. In fact, with the onset of the Industrial Revolution in the early 1800s, kids all across Europe and the US were back to work. You see, with paid factory jobs popping up all over the place, children suddenly became a key source of income for poor families. For the first time, children en masse could get a job and bring home a paycheck, and most families needed the money. Suddenly, children as young as 9 or 10 could be found in factories across the industrialized world. By the end of the 1800s, countries eventually put an end to kids working in such dangerous places. Childhood education became mandatory in most countries, and children were finally seen as people who need to be taken care of until they reach adulthood. So, next time your parents ask you to do a few chores on the weekend when you're just trying to play your video game, just be glad you don't have to go get a grueling job.